with some pretty significant severe weather occurring the past couple days with 243 storm reports on Sunday alone. Could we expect to see more of that as we head towards July? Or will a pattern change? We'll be breaking that all down coming up in this video. Howdy y'all, welcome back. Looks like there's going to be some more severe weather today as there's been a slight risk that has been issued over here by Wisconsin and Minnesota and over here by Nebraska and Wyoming. All hazards are possible today with a pretty low end chance for tornadoes, which is just a 2% chance within both zones. As far as damaging wind threat goes, there's a 15% chance within both zones. And as far as the large hail threat goes, there's a pretty significant chance for large hail over here by Nebraska and parts of Wyoming, and just a regular 15% chance over here by Wisconsin and Minnesota. As we push off into Thursday, there's another slight risk which spans from Iowa all the way down into northern Kentucky. All hazards are possible again tomorrow with a pretty significant chance for a tornado over here in Illinois and parts of Indiana with a 5% chance in the red and a 2% here in the green. As far as damaging wind threat goes, there's a pretty significant chance for damaging winds tomorrow as well. So there's a 15% in the yellow and a 5% chance here in the red. As far as large hail threat goes, that's the biggest threat really of the three, as there is a pretty significant 15% hatched area over here in Illinois, Iowa, and parts of northern Missouri, with a 5% chance surrounding that here in the red. Now as we push off into Friday, there's another slight risk which spans from Indiana all the way down into West Virginia with a marginal risk surrounding that here in the dark green. So let's go ahead and take a look at the time frames when you could expect the worst from the severe weather. Let's go and take a look at the HRR model. Keep in mind that time's up here if you want to keep track. This is an Eastern time, by the way, so keep that in mind. As we push this forward, it looks like some severe weather could be getting started by right around 6, 7, 8 o'clock, lasting through the late evening hours as it turns into more of a squall line event over here by Wisconsin and parts of Minnesota. Now this is where our damaging wind threat could come into play, as we could be dealing with upwards of 10 to 20 knot winds, which could be gusting upwards of about 20, 30 mile an hour here in parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And down here in Nebraska and Wyoming, we could be dealing with upwards of 20 knot winds. So definitely tie down anything you don't want blowing around out there if you live within the slight risk areas today. Now keep in mind the biggest threat today is going to be mainly large hail. But a tornado cannot be ruled out today as well. As we take a look at the significant tornadic parameters, if we push this forward, it looks like the greatest area of concern for tornadoes is going to be mainly over here in Wisconsin and parts of Minnesota, as we're going to be dealing with almost a 1 out of 10 on the tornadic scale. Down here in Nebraska and Wyoming, not that great of a chance. As we look at the composite reflectivity, this will tell us if any supercells are going to be developing by this time. And it looks like there will be some supercell development around this time, so it looks like a couple tornadoes could be possible today within this area, as well as over here there could be some as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at a sounding to show you the ingredients of what we could be dealing with today. Now keep in mind this is just a low-end tornado day. Not much to worry about, but still you should be on guard just in case that tornado ring does go off. Now it looks like we could be dealing with, as far as the thermodynamics go, we're dealing with upper 70 degree temperatures with upper 60 degree dew points, not much of a capping inversion, a little bit of CAPE, almost 3,000 joules per kilogram, a little bit of an elevated mixed layer, almost a dry slot out there, a little bit of a curvature in the hodograph. So it looks like there could be a tornado possible today. Not that great of a chance, but still, like I said earlier, just remain on guard just in case that tornado warning does come through. Make sure you know where to take shelter at: basement, storm shelter, interior room, closet. Have as many walls between you and the outside world as possible, and never fear, as shelter is near. Looks like once we get past the tornado threat, looks like it's going to turn more into a squall line event as we head into the overnight hours tonight, and then it's going to start to die down as we head into 4 o'clock in the morning. It's going to turn mainly into a flooding event, as there is just a marginal risk, so keep that in mind if you live in a low-lying area. We're going to focus our attention over here in the Midwest region, and it looks like we're going to be dealing with a couple rounds of severe weather today. The first round's going to be hitting from right around 8 o'clock. So we're going to be dealing with some hailers down here in southwestern Indiana through right around 2 o'clock. We're going to be dealing with some renegade supercells by this time, where our damaging wind threat and hail threat come into play. And we could be dealing with upwards of 20 knot winds out there, gusting well over 30 mile an hour in some areas. Looks like we're going to be getting a little bit of a break until right around 8 o'clock, where we could be dealing with some renegade supercells within that 5% chance for tornadoes. Now as we look at the significant tornadic parameters, and if you're new here, the significant tornadic parameters are basically what puts all the ingredients together for tornadic development, puts it all into one run of where you can see a tornado. Now that don't mean a tornado can form within the whole area. Like this area, for example, a tornado is not going to happen within this whole zone. It just means that conditions are favorable within that whole zone. As you can see, dealing with almost a 1 out of 10 on the tornadic scale. And as we look at the composite reflectivity again, we can see that we're going to get some little renegades within this 1 out of 10 zone. And as we take a look at a sounding, take a look at the conditions further, we can see the sounding over here on the left is basically looking up on the environment, and this photograph over here is looking down on the environment. Thermodynamics over here on the left, kinematics on the right. As you take a look at the temperatures and dew points here, temperatures here on the right here are around the mid 80s, and dew points are in the low 80s today. Not much in the way of a capping inversion, so no supercells are going to suppress any tornadic development. A lot of CAPE out there, 7,000 joules per kilogram. Not much in the way of the wind shear. Storm relativities is right around 24, pretty low, 1.1 elevated helicity index. So it looks like a high CAPE, low shear event for tornadic development. So it looks like a pretty big day for tornadoes today if any supercells interact with this favorable environment. It looks like once we get past 8 o'clock, it looks like the severe is going to start to diminish and not much is going to be happening. And that leads us into Friday, where there's a severe weather risk from western Indiana all the way down into western West Virginia. And to take a look at this, we're going to look at the Euro model, to look at the lightning flash density rate. Keep on the date times up here if you ever want to keep track of that. And it looks like on the Euro model, so we could possibly be dealing with a couple rounds of severe weather. One happening through the early afternoon hours, and the second round through the late evening hours. And keep in mind, we do not know the severe weather risks for Friday just yet, but stay tuned to my little Twitter page. I will keep you updated on there once we do know the severe weather hazards. So let's go ahead and take a look at what kind of hurricanes we could be dealing with in the Atlantic and the Pacific. As we take a look at the Atlantic and the Pacific, it looks like there is a couple chances for tropical storms and even a hurricane out here in the Pacific, but we're going to focus on the Atlantic first. There's a 20% chance in the next 7 days. Not really that big of a chance. And y'all can take a look at the wording here. And down here in south of Mexico, looks like there is a pretty good chance of tropical storm development. According to the forecast discussion for this, it looks like we could see some formation within the next 7 days. As we focus on this hurricane over here called Hurricane Adrian, it looks like we're dealing with 75 mile an hour winds with max gust at 90. It's not going to affect much of anybody, but let's go and take a look at the track of it. As we can see, by Friday at 8 o'clock, it looks like it's just going to turn out to the Pacific and not affect much of anybody, except for just bringing lots of rainfall down here. So it looks like we got a pretty active hurricane season underway. So let's go and take a look at what we could expect as we head towards July. To determine what we could expect as we head towards July, we're going to take a look at the 500 millibar height anomalies. The blues represent the troughing pattern. The reds represent the ridging pattern, where we know we've been pretty hot down here in Texas and part of the southern part of the country. And out east, we've been dealing with a stormy pattern, where Tropical Storm Sydney could not affect the homeland due to this little troughing pattern. And as we push this forward, this pattern is going to continue for quite some time until a little ridging pattern starts to set in out east. And then a little troughing pattern is going to be setting in for the middle part of the country by July 3rd. And a ridging pattern is going to be setting in out west before a troughing pattern is going to be setting in out west by the middle of July. And as we take a look at the simulated radar, we know we got that severe weather happening for the next 3 days. We're going to be in a soggy pattern after that from the plains out east. And we're going to remain dry for quite some time out west as well. And if you're heading up to those barbecues on July 4th, looks like out east it's going to be pretty soggy in some areas up here in the northern plains, down here in the part of the southeast part of the country, and in the northeast part of the country. Looks like it's going to be pretty soggy for those July 4th cookouts. Out west, it looks like it's going to be pretty good for those July 4th cookouts. And as we head out to watch those fireworks, and be careful if you're setting off any fireworks. We'll have a July 4th Independence Day forecast video out on Sunday or on Monday, so please stay tuned for that. Subscribe down below as well if you never want to miss an upload. So it looks like you're heading out to watch fireworks, or if you're setting off fireworks, looks like it's going to be pretty soggy from the plains out east. If you're in the western part of the country, it looks like it's going to be pretty nice for fireworks out there. And it looks like as we head towards the end of the month, this pattern is going to continue for quite some time. As we take a look at the temperatures, we know we've been pretty cool out in the eastern part of the country and the western part of the country, and pretty hot down here by Texas. It looks like this pattern is going to change as we head towards July. Middle part of the country here is going to be pretty cool. Western part and eastern part is going to be pretty warm. And this pattern is going to continue until the middle of July, where it's going to be sort of cooling off a little bit. And according to the Climate Prediction Center, it looks like it's going to remain above average for much of the country, except for states from Montana on down into northern Texas, where you're all going to be below average. Next 8 to 14 days looks just about the same, except for California, y'all are going to be in that below average pattern. As far as precipitation goes, we know that according to the simulated radar, much of the eastern part of the country is going to be above average, while the western part is going to be below average as far as precip. Next 8 to 14 days remains about the same. So it looks like a pretty active pattern is going to be in store as we head towards July. Looks like it's going to be wet out east and dry out west, and looks like a warm-up is on the way as well. If you live within the risk areas for the next 3 days, remain weather aware, know where to go when that severe warning does go off. Never fear, shelter is near. And it looks like out in the tropics, it looks like we have a hurricane forming in the Pacific. It's not going to affect anybody. Now in the Atlantic, it looks like not much is going to be happening out there either. Or we'll have an Independence Day forecast video out, probably either Sunday or Monday, so please stay tuned for that. So if you liked the video, please hit that thumbs up button, subscribe down below. Appreciate all y'all for watching, and until next time, never stop forecasting.